Hello everybody, welcome back to another Woodworking Wisdom. We're here live today from Axminster HQ, here in a lovely sunny Axminster day. And today we are going to have a look at the Kubb lawn game. I think it's called Kubb, it might be called Kubb. I did research it a little bit, but this is a game that's played out on the lawn, so it's like a kind of on the grass. And you've got a king and 10 cubs, and you kind of it's a throwing game, so you kind of have one person on one side, one person on the other, and it's the first person to knock down all the cubs, and the king will win the game. The rules are slightly more complicated to that, but do look it up. It's a really cool game, and I first played this on my sister's wedding last summer, and I thought to myself, this is a really easy thing to just make myself. And I've looked online, and they do fetch quite a bit of money. Now, the sizes that we've kind of gone for, I've kind of gone as big as I can with the timber that we had. And that's a kind of a 3-inch board. So it's come out of a 3-inch pine board. So quite chunky, but that's all that we had in the shop that was dry and kind of ready to go. So you can make these out of hardwoods, out of if you wanted to do it out of something different, but I just thought that pine was cheap and accessible. Well, not really cheap anymore, but it's available. You can go out and buy it, and it's dry, it's not going to split in the sun and things like that. So I've gone with this 3-inch board. The official sizings are a little bit bigger, so it says to have a 4-inch king, and then everything else goes to 3-inch. But we're kind of working with the size of timber available to us. And actually, the game that I played, certainly the pieces were smaller than the ones that we're going to do today. We've got Matt on cameras and questions. So if you've got any questions, please pop them in the comments. And like always, we'll do our best to answer them. But otherwise, we're just going to crack on and get on with it. I need to just find my goggles quickly. I think I've just popped them on here. Here we go. Got my goggles. Always putting these down in silly places. Okay. So I've cut a piece to size. So I've chopped a bit off of here. And that's about 12 inches. Or 300 mil long. Okay, so we've got a little chunk like that. And we want to get the maximum we can out of this. So let's measure it up. We can go on the bench here. We got 75 mil across the width. So I can set my bandsaw up at 75 mil off the fence. And then when I cut that, we should have a nice square. Okay. This isn't perfectly flat. Okay, it's got a bit of a a little bit of warping to it as it's kind of shrunk and dry, and also we've got this kind of little crack running down the heart of it. Okay, so you can see on that end it's not perfectly flat or square. But what we're going to do is when we pop it on the bandsaw is just to make sure that this side is down. We've got a little bit of a space under here, but we're going to hold this side down and work off of this flat face before it changes direction. All right. I'm just checking here. It's nice and square up against the fence. So hopefully when we cut down here, we're going to have that side and this side nice and parallel to give us a nice kind of square chunk. So, extraction on. I'll pop a thumb on top here. This one to kind of drive it. And I've got my push stick at hand if I need it. Going to reach across with my push stick. Just waiting for that blade to completely stop. You can let go of the workpiece, off for the extractor. And that's the bit we want. So we're back on the bench now. This is the piece that we're after. We've got a couple of knots, but that's not going to do much harm. And then the bit that we cut off, you can see it's not quite square because we come off of the flat on that one. That one looks a bit better, but that one's not quite square. We've got some other bits that we can cut from this though, because those cubs are just that little bit smaller. Okay, good. So now this is going to be our king, and this is what the king's going to look like. It's got a little kind of crown on the top, and we've cut that just like we would a kind of compound cut. Sometimes we do these little things on the scroll saw. So we're cutting in two different directions to give us, let's bring it up to the big camera there. Okay. So you can see after cutting that in two directions, we get this kind of crown shape on the top. And we're just doing a bigger version of that on the bandsaw, really. So first thing we want to do is just mark this off. Okay, so we're 75 there. Let's find our midpoint. So it'll be 37.5, kind of roughly. We'll pop a little pencil mark in there to give us our center mark. And we need to do that on all four faces. Just double check that's my good one. I think it is. Yeah. So just going around the square here. Just marking off a rough center. These don't have to be perfect. So from marking center there, I'm just going to use one of these Japanese MITRE squares and just start drawing some lines on it. And don't worry if we're leaving any pencil marks kind of in the way, any overlaps, because we can just sand them off anyway. And there needs to be just a little slight crossover there. And we're basically drawing a zigzag. So we're going from the corner, sorry, from that center line outwards. So we've come out from center, 45 degrees, and from the corner, and it should meet somewhere there. Okay, we only need to do this on two faces. So again, from center. And then from our corners. Good. So you can see on there, we've got that little zigzag running across the top on two faces. Okay, there's no need to go all the way around. We only need to cut this through two planes. Okay, so that one's pretty much ready to go. I also want to put almost like a kind of like a collar on it. Okay, and I think this is 75 by 75, so we can go 75 down, and then that makes that almost a nice little square. So I'm just going to go 75 down, just mark that off. Again, a bit rough and ready, and then we want our square here. How are we doing, Matt? Any questions coming in yet, or are we all good?
No, all good at the moment.
Good. So we've just marked that off. Actually, I want to go another 10 mil down, so we've got 2 lines to work from. So again, just going to whiz around with this square. And these are going to get knocked about a bit. We're going to be throwing sticks at these. So they might get a few little bruises and things like that. But I think that's all part of it. Cool. So we've got a little kind of collar marked off as well. All right. So we've got our 2 zigzags and a little kind of 10mm thick collar. Now let's cut these on the bandsaw. So we're coming back over onto our bandsaw. And you can see I've brought the guide system down nice and low to the workpiece. That's going to stop any of the kind of wandering and things like that. You can see I can't quite get my MITRE fence in there. If I could get my MITRE fence in there, that would give us our perfect 45. But I'm happy to do this freehand for what it is today. So extraction's going on. I'm just lining up our little line here, just keeping that nice and kind of parallel to the blade. Form a little shoulder and then start your cut from there. Just going down to the bottom of that line. Another one in here. Again, just rest on that face until it's just formed a little shoulder. And then you can push the object forward. Just turn that over. You're getting that little rest before we start doing the cut to allow the cut the blade just to kind of bed in. It's going to stop that kind of deflection when you first start your cut. Good. So I'm just going to turn the machine off just for a moment. Allow the blade to stop. And then we can remove that fence and do the other angle. So we're coming in this way now. And again, trying to kind of parallel it to the blade. Allow the teeth just to make that shoulder. And then push it onto the top. Just going to backtrack a little. Using the side of the teeth just to nibble that a little bit away. Better. And I'm not going to go in and try and fish those out. They're quite safe there. And go nice and slowly as the 2 cuts meet. You don't really want to come and put a little line down that other side. Turning the workpiece to 90 degrees. Again, just nice and slowly on that end bit. Just checking down there. I think I just want to tickle a little bit off. There's just a tiny bit of sideways pressure and allowing the curve of the teeth to kind of just nibble that off. Okay, so again, go really slow on that last little cut. So if we pop back onto camera 3 there, Matt, that's brilliant, cheers. You can see we've got this kind of crown shape starting to emerge. A little bit dusty in there, and these corners are very sharp at the moment, so we want just a little bit of abrasive just to knock those back a bit. That 600 grit's a bit too fine, that. So just a bit of rough old sandpaper, and we're going to just remove those really sharp corners. And just go all the way around. Just soften them in a bit. For anything like my lot, we had lots of kids invading the pitch, as it were. So you just want to be careful that no one trips and hurts themselves on these edges. And just have a little tidy up. If you, you know, the bandsaw cut, if we just, again, pop back onto this one. If you've got like little ridges from your bandsaw cut, this one's not too bad, it's pretty clean. But if you have got little ridges in there, something like a square file, because we cut 245s, there should be a 90-degree angle down in the bottom there. So something like, sorry, if we come on to camera 2 there, I'll just move this down. Okay, so square file, that'll fit perfectly in there, and you can just work away, and you can have a flat one if you want to do these faces. But this little square one's perfect for getting down into those little corners if you may have overshot it with a bandsaw or have any little ridges in there that you want to get rid of. Okay, so we've got our kind of little king. Next job, we want to cut that kind of the marking of that little collar, or it's kind of separating this crown off from the rest of it. And I've seen these in really cool shapes. If you wanted to do this, another game for this is another name for this game is Viking chess. And I've seen these with really cool like Viking helmets. So you can use that same compound cut to do all sorts of different shapes on these. I've also done one which I've seen around that's kind of like the kind of castle in normal chess, just a kind of grid on the top. But I preferred this crown shape, so that's what we're going with today. Okay, so we want to cut a little V into this, and I think I'm going to start off with the MITRE fence this time, because it will fit with the workpiece. And we're going for this kind of line here, so we can come back off of our blade here, turn extraction on, push stick at the ready, and we're just going to cut about halfway into that line. Just going to line that up with our first cut. Oops, I just pinged off the back there. That's okay, it's just a little bit. One more there, and you can see where I haven't quite drawn the line square there, or the workpiece isn't quite square. We're just following the previous cut. Cool. I'm going to remove this now.
This other way, I'm just going to go freehand because our mitre fence isn't going to help much there. So again, just coming in from this top line, try and hold it at a rough 45 and just meet up with your previous cut. And that little triangle should just pop out that way. Feel like my hand's a little bit close there, so I'm just swapping back to the push stick. Good. So there we go. We've got our king. That's pretty much all the machining to do on it. You know, really quick and simple, effective little way. It looks almost like the end of a Christmas cracker or something. But that's the king's crown. Okay, that kind of differentiates it from the kind of more plain square cubs. All right, you probably want to do a bit of sanding on this now. Something like a random orbit sander or a little pad sander like this, just to get rid of any pencil marks, any kind of rough bits. And also it's worth just checking around. These are going to be handled quite a lot. And sometimes this pine can be quite kind of splintery. So I usually just kind of run around, make sure there's no splits coming off, and you can kind of remove those. A bit of sanding. Just until we remove all those bandsaw lines. So you want to do that on all four sides. Make sure you get rid of your bandsaw lines across the faces here. Again, that's going to be a pretty much a 90-degree little bit in there. So you can get in there and tidy it up with your square file here. Okay. So that's our king pretty much done. You could paint this, color it. You know, if you're going to color it or stain it, probably worth putting something with some UV protection on there, so that it doesn't kind of fade, because this is going to be out in the sun quite a lot. So something, you know, with a bit of UV protection if you're coloring. I quite like them just natural like this. And you could personalize this with a bit of pyro, whatever you want really. Okay, so that's our king. Really quick and easy. And like I say, this is about 3-inch square. Our cubs need to be a bit smaller than that. So I've just gone, you know, I didn't want to go down to 2-inch, and that's the kind of ratio in the actual game, is that it would be 4-inch for the king and then 3-inch for the cubs. But I've just, because it's this 3-inch, I didn't want to go down to 2-inch for that. So I've just taken off about 10 mil. All right. So that was our piece that we cut off. Oh, no, sorry, this is our piece that we cut off that married up with that one. So we can go with about 65 mil for these. So again, we're just bringing our fence in to 65, the rule behind the blade there. and then that's fixed in. Okay, now on this piece, let's go on that overhead one there, Matt. On this piece, we've got a bit of a split on our down the heart. So this piece we want to cut out if we can, and we've got 10 mil off both sides, so I think we could lose that. But worth sort of checking those sort of things out. See if you can lose any kind of damage, and you can see that corner's a bit more. Sorry, this corner is a bit more off of angle as well. It's not quite 90, so we'll chop all that off. We'll use the bottom face and this side face to keep our 90 degrees. So we're going to cut that bit off. Just double checking our piece of timber. Extraction goes back on. And on with the bandsaw. You can see that bit kind of trying to break away now. Just kicking my push stick out the way of the blade so we don't cut it. And just remove that from the back of the table beyond the blade. And then we want to put our square corner up against the fence and along the bed of the bandsaw, and we can start our cut again. Give the saw time to cut, don't kind of force it through. Sometimes this pine can be a little bit sticky, and the dust that comes off it, you kind of bind to the blade if it gets too hot. Nice and slow on the exit. And we've got a little bit of waste on this one. So we've got like a little slither. And you can see it's not quite straight, but we have managed to kind of square up that piece of timber. And we got rid of that that split as well, the kind of heart of the tree. Okay. I'm sure we could find something to do with this. This could be kindling, or it could be you know, a little scoreboard or something like that. So don't waste these. Make sure you use them on something else, a different project. Or you could just get a smaller piece of timber and have the king from a different piece of timber if you didn't want to kind of create that waste and wanted to save on material. So these cubs are going to be half the length of our king. So that is, I think it's about 12 inches or 300 mil. So it's just over 300 mil, so it'll be 12 inches. So we can go just over 150 for our cubs. So again, setting the bandsaw. We've got plenty of throat on this to be able to cut that 150. And then another little cut. Always best practice to let that blade just stop by itself. And I've got a little bit more on one than the other, so I'm just going to use that one as my kind of master copy. And it's not, you know, these don't have to be a certain size. They're about half the size of the king in length, or height, I should say. Cool. So we've got a couple of Kubbs here. We need 10 of those. So with when I showed you that first one, this bigger bit, we need about 1.5 meters of that to get the whole set out of that, which I think is quite good. You know, it's going to bring lots of fun gaming. So 10 of those Kubbs. So just keep going with those cuts until you know, you're happy that you've got all 10. Again, you want to sand these. Again, we want to kind of check for little splinters and stuff. So let's come back onto the bench here. So any little splinters and things like that, just pull them off. Give it a good sanding all over, all 4 sides, tops and bottoms. And I like to just kind of take off the hard edge as well. Again, we're going to be chucking these kind of sticks at it. All right. And if there's any kind of real sharp edges, sometimes when they clash, you're going to splinter a bit off. So just try and round them off, soften them up, and it's going to make them a bit tougher as well. And you could do that with a random orbit sander or a little sanding block, even just a bit of abrasive, just knocking off hard corners and 90-degree kind of sharp edges. Okay, so just putting a little radius on this. You could also route it. So our camera's just decided to turn itself off. Okay, yeah, right, that's back on. I'm just going to zoom that back in quickly, Matt, while we're here. I think we're nearly done on the bandsaw. Oh, great. The camera's left the ceiling, everybody. This is the joy of live shows. I'm just going to stick that back up there for now. Okay. Right, we'll leave that there a minute. So we're down to 2 cameras. We come back onto the main camera here, Matt. Sorry about that. We're having a little bit of a camera's fallen off the ceiling. I think that was my fault, but okay. So, like I say, you want 1 of the kings, 10 of the Kubbs. Really, really simple so far. The next bit we're just going to take from like a broom handle. So picked up these broom handles. These are really cheap, and you know, get them down your hardware store. They've usually got like a string or something on one end, and then the kind of tapered plug that goes into the actual broom. We can just chop them off. So yeah, these are going to be 12 inches, or they're going to be the same size as the king, or the same kind of length of the king. And this is inch thick, this broom handle. So I'm just going to cut this end off. So it's got a little drill hole and that little bit of cord, which we just want to knock off. So on camera 2 there. Okay. So I'm just going to use my Japanese saw. We don't want this rolling on the bandsaw. But I'm sure lots of naughty people would just put this straight through the bandsaw. The risk is that it will roll when it touches onto the blade. So what did we say? It was just over 300. So these are going to be the same length as our king. So I'll just mark that off with a rule and then bring it along in the vise, keeping it nice and close to the vise where I'm actually cutting. If we were cutting down here, you get a lot more vibration running through it. So keep it nice and close to the vise. Just get it started with my thumbnail there in the, as a guide.
And these cut on the pull stroke, these Japanese saws. That's the bit we want. And all I'm going to do with this, I'll just grab my goggles. You can turn these. I'm just going to put a little kind of chamfer on the end on the belt and disc sander here. So I want my extraction to come across from my bandsaw onto my belt and disc sander. Extraction on. And I'm really just going to roll this on the table, put a little chamfer on the end. Just changing the angle slightly to soften it. So I'm kind of producing more of a round over than a chamfer actually. So taking off at almost at 45 and then just changing the angles very slightly. And again, that's your kind of throwing stick, overarm or underarm. And with this broomstick, I've kind of gone through the store and felt which ones were kind of heavier. Sometimes you'll notice the colors difference, and usually the darker ones in the pine, the kind of red pine, is going to give it that little bit more weight. And you want a bit of weight to these. You don't want to throw it at the thing and it kind of just deflects and flies away. So you could turn these between centers if you've got if you're doing like wanted to do like something more high end set. So you can turn these between centers, get those little roundovers going. But yeah, so like I say, really easy just to cut these and shape them. And that's just a pine handle. Okay, you can see I've just softened that little end piece rather than it being square like that. Because again, we are going to be throwing these at the piece of at the king and at the Kubbs, and that hard edge is really going to put a shaped dent into it. Just by softening it and taking away that edge, it's all going to last a bit longer and be a bit more kind of comfortable, because all of this stuff you're going to handle is quite a tactile kind of game. And then you just need 4 corner posts. So I've done just some dowels. So I've cut some dowels to length. Really easy. Again, it's played in I think it's an 8 meter by 6 meter square. So you want some little posts to mark out your corners. And quite often these will come with a piece of string as well, an 8 meter piece of string with a knot tied at 6 meters. So you can kind of plot out the game area. So that's about it, really. Like I say, a really simple and easy one for anyone to achieve. It's just finding that piece of timber. Like I say, you can kind of upgrade this if you wanted to go for a bit of, you know, like a nicer piece of wood, if you didn't want to use pine. We didn't have anything that's dry, and we don't want to use wet timbers really, because this is a kind of summertime game. As the sun starts baking a wet piece of timber, it's going to start splitting and things like that. We want to keep it all nice. I'd probably chuck an oil on that now, like a finishing oil, Danish oil, whatever it is that you want to use. But things to remember is it's 1 king, all right? And again, you saw how easy that was to make using that compound cut. Really easy peasy. Your Kubbs are going to be a little bit smaller. On the official set, They are kind of 3/4 the size in square as the king, and they're always half the height of the king. Okay, the kind of throwing sticks, they are the same length as the king, and that was from an inch broomstick. So all of this stuff's really easy. If you wanted to go and pop down to kind of your hardware type shops, you can pick all of this material up straight off the shelf. So really nice and accessible for everyone. And then all you need is the bandsaw. I suppose you could do this with a handsaw. Just try and be a bit more accurate with your cuts. Try and keep things nice and square, because this is going to stand on a piece of on a grass lawn, really. So yeah, try and keep the bottom square so it sits nicely. It kind of nestles down on the floor, and it's not sat at a an awkward angle. You'll get accused of cheating if it's not quite straight. But I think that's about it. Is there any questions or anything, Matt? Are we all good?
There's only questions about the rules of the game, really.
Oh, the rules of the game.
Yeah.
I would just look that up online. It is a little bit kind of complicated when you explain it, but actually when you get hands-on with it, it's really kind of intuitive, easy game to pick up, and quite quickly you start making your own tactics and stuff. But check it out. It's spelled K-U-B-B, and I think it's actually pronounced Kubb rather than Kubb, but I've always known it as Kubb. And like I say, we had it at my sister's wedding last year, and the aim of the game really is that you kind of get into your 8x6 not square, rectangle. The king goes in the middle, and then you kind of place your cubs out in a line, and it's the first person to knock over all 5 and then the king. But there are a couple of little kind of rules in between as well. So check it out. The rules are all online. It's a really popular game. Great for this sort of weather. Great at your kind of weddings. If you've got people coming over, they've got kids, it's a really good one to kind of keep them busy. It's a nice fun game for adults and kids. There is an element of skill as well. So, it's a really kind of fun game. And that's why I wanted to just make a really simple version to show you guys if you wanted to have a go. And people really like this game. So it's quite a sellable type thing and minimal effort put in. Well, I think that's about it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you back next week. We've got some really cool projects to look at. So join us again. If you've enjoyed this, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe and notifications, all that. And we'll see you again soon for some more woodworking wisdom. Thanks a lot.